Hey everyone, this is Mike Andes, and you're listening to the Business Bootcamp Podcast. Today we are going to be talking about what would I do first. So what would I do first if I was starting a new business? What would I do first if I was having a marketing campaign? What would I do first if I was trying to change the culture of my business? What would I do first? That's what we're talking about today on the show. But before we get into today's show, a big thank you to today's sponsor, which is Gusto. So many of you have tried out their software for payroll. One of the things I'd encourage you to check out as well is the side of the benefits that they offer and the way that they give your employees a great dashboard to view their hours, their payroll, and their benefits, and be able to pay health, dental, so many different types of benefits that your employees want for literally $6 per month. So check it out today. Get an entire 90 days completely free if you go to gusto.com/bootcamp. So today we are going to be talking about the first. And the reason I'm talking about this is because every single day I get asked the question, what would you do first? And then they fill in the blank. If you were trying to do X, if you're trying to do this, if you were just starting a business, what would you do first? If you were trying to do this, what would you do first? So today we're going to go through a few of those. The first thing I want to talk about though, because we're talking about firsts, is I would love for you to join the Facebook group. And if you haven't already, you can just join the Facebook group. It's Small Business Owners of America. And then in brackets, I have Business Bootcamp, so you can tell which one is ours. And you'll see there's a picture of me on like the icon for now, just so you can recognize it. So there's like 10 of us in there now. I'd love to see that grow and ask questions directly from you all and answer those directly on that Facebook page. So if you have questions on how to start, grow, or save your business, that is going to be the new best way to get a hold of me, is the Facebook group. It's Small Business Owners of America. And then in brackets, you'll see Business Bootcamp, and join the group. And if you ever have a question, you can put it in there, and people from a whole bunch of different types of industries can comment on your situation and give you advice. So today, what would you do first if you had to implement systems and you had no systems in your business? What system would I implement first? A sales system. So I've said it before. I really talked a lot about it several years ago, and that is, your business is a sales organization that just happens to be selling a certain type of service or a certain type of product. You are a sales organization, and that's the key fundamental to growing your business, is realizing you are a sales organization. And a sales organization that does not have a system around the process in which they bring leads and prospects and convert them to customers and then convert them into recurring customers, if there's not a system in place for that to happen, that is the fundamental flaw of a sales organization, and you will not be able to grow your business as efficiently or as quickly as you could otherwise. When we have franchisee training here at Augusta in November, one of the biggest things we're going to talk about, the thing that we kind of fundamentally circle all our training around, is the sales cycle, the sales system that really encompasses the customer life cycle. Because a customer life cycle is very similar to the sales cycle in that they need to be aware of you first, and then they need to become a prospect. They give you maybe some information, become a lead. They say like, yeah, I need your services. They become a lead. And then there should be a system of like selling them, of like the estimate process, giving them a proposal. All of that is part of the sales system. So I would say that your first system should be the sales system, because sales rules all, and because it's also really the groundwork for all the other systems. Because inside of the sales system is going to be a system for how do you create recurring, take a customer and, get a review from them, but then also continually sell to them and make them a recurring customer. That's part of the sales process. So that's a kind of a subsystem within the major system of the sales system. So I would focus, number one, if you have no systems in your business, figure out how you convert prospects into leads, leads into customers, and customers into recurring customers. And that's the first system that I would build. All right, so where would the first dollars be spent on marketing if you have never done advertising or marketing before? The answer to that is a website. And number two is split a budget between two different options. So a lot of you thought I would have given more like Facebook ads or like print marketing or some sort of like tactical thing for that. The reason I'm saying a website is because I know the genre of people listening here are small business owners, a lot of which are home service-based businesses, and really a website is going to be fundamental for you. There are going to be certain types of industries where it's not going to be as important. So I put a number 2 in there, which is take 2. I don't care what they are. I don't care if it's Facebook and Google ads. I don't care if it's print marketing with a postcard versus a flyer, door hangers versus a banner, like a billboard. I don't care. Take 2, split your budget, whatever that is, in half, spend equal amounts of money on both, and track the leads that come in, and track how much revenue they bring in and quality of the leads that are coming from each source. Figure out what your customer acquisition cost is, and then literally just take that one. So if you have 2 different options, and say it's Facebook, let's say it's Facebook ads and it's Google ads. Say you have $1,000, spend $500 on both, track the leads that come in, and let's say that Google ads gets twice as much revenue, twice as many customers. The customer acquisition cost is half as much. And so you're like, okay, Google ads beat Facebook ads. It's not necessarily to say that that's a global statement for your business. It might be the creative. It might be the text that you're using. But let's assume that all things equal, that Google beat Facebook ads out. Now, what you do, the second step is then to take the Google ads. That becomes your the thing that you are going to try to beat. That is going to be the thing that you are trying to now create another marketing campaign that beats out the customer acquisition cost, beats out the number of leads, what's the word I'm looking for? That control, that's the word I'm looking for. So when you take those 2, the Google ads and the Facebook ads, and the Google ads, say for example, beats out the Facebook ads in performance, then you take that Google ad and you make it the control, and then you start making ads and other marketing campaigns that try to beat the control. So the goal is always to beat the control, have 2 campaigns running, so you're beating the control all the time. But before any of that, number 1 is a website. So what's the first thing I would do? If I had marketing dollars, I would spend it on a website. All right, if I was hiring my first employee and I had never hired someone before, what would I do? How would I employ them? What's the first employee I would hire? The first employee that I would hire would do one of 2 things. Either A, they would do something I am not good at. So it might be something that's a little bit more detail-oriented, maybe numbers-oriented for myself. That's not necessarily the strongest point of what I do. So that's something that I could hire my first employee for, is something that I am not good at. The second reason, or the second thing that you might hire that first employee for, is to do something that is not growing the business. And that a lot of times means from a top line revenue standpoint. So usually that's going to be things that are not in the sales department. That might be even customer fulfillment. That might be customer service. That might be customer communication. Those things are great. Those things are important. Those might be really fundamental to your business. But you might hire your first employee so that they can focus on doing those things, and you can focus on going out and getting new business, driving in more leads, focusing on the marketing, focusing on developing relationships, networking, getting in new leads, new customers, new revenue, and focusing on top line revenue. So if I was hiring my first employee, I would do one of 2 things. I'd either hire someone that is good at the things I'm not, so they can do the numbers, they can do the more meticulous things that I'm not very good at, and I can focus on bigger picture sales stuff, or I would hire out the things that has nothing to do with the growth and expansion of the business. If your goals are aligned with growing the business, expanding it, making it bigger, growing top line revenue, number 2, that second option is going to be probably what you're going to start doing first. The first employee is probably going to do the things in terms of fulfilling customer orders, doing the thing that actually you sell. Like if you do services, the person that actually performs the services, you're going to go hire your first employee that is going to actually perform the services, actually pack the product, actually be in the retail store, actually bake the baked good, so that you can go sell more baked goods, that you can go sell more services, that you can go upsell other customers and grow top line revenue. All right. Next thing, what would I do first if I was starting a business? What would be the first industry that I would go into if I had no business experience? I wasn't an entrepreneur before, and had nothing like what would be the first industry if I never had a business? What would I start? I would start a service-based business that is around home improvement, whether it be landscaping, handyman repair, a moving company, cleaning services, roofing, painting, so many different things that you can think about around a house. HVAC systems like lighting, design, whatever it is. I would start there. The reason for that is because twofold. Number one, it's low cost entry. And if you have no experience, it's not likely a bank is going to give you money. It's not likely that investors are going to line up to give you money. And if you're just trying to get started in the business world, started as your own boss, I would go out and I would start a business that's around the service industry, around home improvement, low barrier to entry, as well as it's such a complex business because, yes, let's say, for example, you do painting. Well, technically you could teach anyone how to paint unless they're me. I'm horrible at painting. But most time, it's the painting process itself is not complicated. Cleaning someone's house is not super complicated. Doing lawn care, mowing lawns is not super complicated. But there's so many different facets to the business that you can really hone your skills on. If you're doing cleaning services, yes, the cleaning itself might not be super hard. However, you got to do marketing. You have to do hiring. You have to build your website. You have to do cash management. You have to sell to customers and figure out how to create that sales funnel. There's so many different things that you learn because it's a industry that has so many different moving parts, and labor is very hard to find. So you have to work on efficiencies and culture and communication with customers and employees. So a service-based business is not necessarily easy. I'm not saying it's easy, but the barrier to entry is low because there's not a huge amount of capital that you need to get started. And there's so much you can learn about so many different industries and areas of business by simply starting that type of a business that has a labor component, an advertising component, instead of just starting out with say consulting or real estate, for example, where you're going to learn sales, you're going to learn that aspect really, really well. But when you start figuring out employees and you figure out laborers and you're trying to deal with even minimum wage workers and trying to train them, you start to learn a lot of skills. And so I like when entrepreneurs, when they want to start learning the craft of business and figure out marketing, figure out systems, figuring out hiring, figuring out firing, a great way to start, in my opinion, is home improvement services. And so that's why we started Augusta with a franchise and everything, to give those systems up front to those entrepreneurs that are getting started and have a much easier road those first 5 years instead of trying to figure it out by themselves. The last thing, what would be the first cultural change I would make, or how would I change the culture? What's the first thing I would do if I had a bad culture, if I didn't like showing up and I didn't like my employees and I didn't like the way that people interacted and people were always at each other's throats and no one liked working with each other, no one enjoyed texting each other outside of business hours? How would I change the culture? What's the first thing I would do? I would have team meetings. So if you don't have a weekly team meeting with all of your staff, that's something you really would need to do. In terms of team meetings, I would do at least a weekly meeting, preferably twice a week, but at least a weekly team meeting. And then I would also do off-site meetings where you get a little bit more in the clouds of the goals of the business, the financials of the business, where the business is going, how you've been doing, where you can improve, all of that sort of thing. Those are off-site. So we do those twice a year, spring and fall. And then every week we have 2 team meetings. Those meetings are a little bit more about the day-to-day operations. Where can we improve? What is, in the moment, what jobs, more specific in the dirt kind of details, whereas the offsite meetings are a little bit more about the future and about our goals and aspirations and where we're tracking towards that. So number 1 would be team meetings. The second thing that's kind of a very close second, kind of 1.5, is switching to a pay system, a compensation system that's performance-based. So I just believe in it so much. In fact, with the franchisees, we're building our own software around this pay-for-performance system that the amount of productivity and efficiencies that I've seen using a pay-by-performance system is so incredible, and the returns are huge for the business, the returns are great for the employees, and it changes the culture because everyone starts to think the same way. Instead of you as the business owner going in one direction of like efficiency and profitability and focusing on cutting out waste, and the employees thinking about like how long they can be on the clock without being caught and not producing any work or like sleeping on the job. We had an employee to start with us a couple weeks ago, and he was driving by a crew from one of his previous employer, and he's like, they were sleeping. Their crew was sleeping for like 30, 40 minutes at a gas station in their truck, and he literally drove by and was like, yeah, well, when I used to work there, that was considered like the highest performing, the best team A, mowing crew. And here he's now driving by them and they're sleeping in their trucks. Why? Because they're getting paid by the hour. And yet the owner is wanting to think about efficiencies and how do I make them go faster. But yet they're thinking about how can I do as little work as possible but get paid this hourly rate. And so that's pulling the culture in two different directions. And so number one thing I would do is have team meetings on a weekly basis, have offsite meetings for those more goal projections, looking back, seeing how our results, our growth pattern, where can we improve, profitability, financials, those offsites. Then having the weekly, more like in the trenches, what's going on, where can we improve on this job or in that client, or what happened here, what did we do really well, what customer reviews came in. And then, but 1.5, right behind team meetings as a cultural changer, I would say, put a system in place to compensate your people based upon performance that aligns you as the owner along with them. It's not like you're trying to get them. You're giving them an advantage by making more money and having the opportunity to increase their income by performing and aligning themselves with the goals of the business. And so when you do that, whenever the tide of a culture is going in the same direction, there's so much better culture that is created. Whereas if you're going in one direction, your employees are going in another, your manager's going in a different direction because they have a different they have a percentage commission that's coming out in a certain direction. And like, if you don't get everyone's alignment going in the same direction, like there's always going to be issues. There's always going to be people disagreeing. There's always going to be tension or like hard customers and like hard accounts or people make mistakes. But if generally everyone's goal is the same, like to grow the business, to be more efficient, to make more money for the employees and for the business, if that's the current, like the constant theme and the constant flow, and everyone's in that same sort of tide, then the pressure is all going in the same direction. And so you can get around those issues and like days and customers that are a little bit harder, like, because you all know that you're going in the same direction. And so that's what I would recommend. So if I starting my first business, I'd be in the home improvement service-based business. If I was trying to change my culture, I'd have team meetings and I'd implement pay for performance systems. If I was have a very first system and I had no systems in my business, the number one thing I would systematize is my sales system. How do I convert leads and people that have no idea who I am, prospects, into paying customers? And if I was spending my first dollars on marketing, I'd have a website. And if I already had a website, I would make sure that I split test an advertising method, take the winner and make it my control, and then it'd be my job to beat that control. And if I was hiring my first employee, I would hire them to do the things that I'm not good at, or I would hire them to do the things that are actually producing the work so that I could go out and I could drive top line revenue, focus on sales, focus on networking, and bring in more business. That's the first, and this is the last. And so I want to say goodbye to you. I'll see you on the next episode, but make sure you join us on the Facebook group, Small Business Owners of America Business Bootcamp. I'll see it in the Facebook group. I'd love to see your comments, and I'd love to see if I can help you.